We are recording with Dr. Jim Thorp, who's been on here twice before. On Saturday, April 22nd, 2023 at 4:29 p.m. Eastern Time. Guys, if you want to support the show, click on the little red button that's locals, or go to the description, buy the merch. And what are you playing with right there? What just fell over?
Well, I'll tell you, and I take no royalties on this book, but this
Uh-huh.
is one of our recent books, and maybe you might consider having the lead author, Sally Saxon,
Sure.
who is a co-author on with her, with you sometime.
Sure.
I hate promoting
No,
books
no, go
because
for it, man. I don't.
people misinterpret I'd much rather promote my beautiful co-researcher here, my beautiful bride Maggie. So I'd much rather promote her
Hey, I'm down, man.
because I got to talk about a little bit of the work that Maggie, my beautiful bride, who's an incredible attorney as well, and what we've been working on for the last year. And she just broke out a really, I think, a very, very important issue. So what Maggie and I and others have been working on for a year, we're pretty blown away by what we have irrefutably shown in that the rollout of this experimental gene shot in the most vulnerable populations in the world, which are my patients, pregnant women, preborns, and newborns, and to push this on them as a fait accompli. They said, oh, safety studies were done. No, they were not. There was no safety data. Actually, the complete opposite. There was danger data. So I want to kind of go through and what Maggie has been working on. Maggie M. Thorp, JD, she's my beautiful bride, and we're a team. We published a lot together. What she's been working on for the last many, many months is getting information from the federal government and from the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology and the American College of OBGYN to figure out what the timeline was, what their timeline was. And she just broke about, let's see, last summer she put in a FOIA request to the Department of Health and Human Services. And in learning how to do that and be really focused, she studied a lot of other FOIA requests. I think she's done half a dozen before. But she specifically wanted the communications between Department of HHS and the CDC and the American College of OBGYN in the time frame pretty much from the pandemic time frame. So I just wanted to go through that timeline with you and your audience, Tommy, sure. if you're okay with that.
Let's do it. We can do whatever. We can talk about puppies if we want, man. We can do, the show. We can do whatever.
Yeah. So let's start out with December 1st, 2020 for your audience and kind of keep that. And I'll kind of progress through the next year of sequence of events of what we know to be true. Now, by the way, Maggie's FOIA request just came back 3 days ago. We have irrefutable, undeniable. This is a breaking news. We've posted 3 or 4 tweets. They're like going viral. But what she found was that they are totally captured. The American College of OBGYN is totally captured by grant programs and massive amounts of money that they have funneled to the American College of OBGYN with an irrefutable goal. If you take this money, you cannot deviate whatsoever from CDC and from HHS, period. And we're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars. So we have our answer now. We have our answer. The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology is supposed to be an NGO. It's supposed to be completely independent, non-biased. It's supposed to be serving me and my patients. What we found is the exact opposite. They have been funneling massive amounts of money. So they have 1,400 pages of communications just in the last few years. 1,400, 50% of which they redacted. So they're an extension of the federal government. You can't separate them. They are lock in step. They are joined and fused at the hips. They are fused. There's no difference between ACOG, American College of OBGYN, and the government, period. So we'll go back to that. So that's breaking news. And for you and your audience that want to follow us, the Twitter handle for me is JA, as in the initials of my first and middle name, James Allen. JA Thorp is my last name, THORP, no E. And then MFM, as in maternal fetal medicine, Mary Frances Mary. JA Thorp, MFM. And Maggie is at capital M, Maggie, underscore Thorp, capital THORP, no E. So we're both pretty active on there, and I would encourage you to follow this story because we've nailed them big time.
Let me just check. I think I started to interrupt. I think I have your Twitter in the description. Let me add. No, I do. No, wait, no, do I? No, I do not. So if you could so kindly keep talking, I'm going to add those Twitters in the description right now.
So on December 1st, then we know, we'll set that as a hard date, that was the date that started the 90-day roll-off of the post-marketing. That's the day that all the Pfizer vaccines, now I'm talking about Pfizer specifically, rolled out from the factory. So their post-marketing 5.3.6 went from December 1st, 90 days later, to December 28th, 2021. So let's keep that 90 days. In actuality, it wasn't really the first 90 days of rollout. It was the first 76 days of rollout because they didn't start the actual injections until they found the actual injections about December 14th. So that's about 10 weeks. So what I would like to do, at this juncture is share a screen with you. And I see that I think you've allowed me to do that. Nope,
no,
I'm disabled.
I'll add it right now. Sorry, I was just
okay.
Putting your Twitters in the description, and I will update that right now.
So what I'd like to do is you should be seeing real time right now.
Seeing your
my screen.
Yep.
And what I'm going to do is this is online, and I'm just going to, on DuckDuckGo, you see, I'm going to put Pfizer 5.3.6, and then I put in PHMPT. This is a public record. The PHMPT is just one of the public outlets that has hosted this Pfizer document that was dropped. So I'm going to go on that. That's one that I think is easiest. And then there it is right there.
Okay.
You see it, 5.3.6, cumulative analysis of post-authorization adverse events. This is Pfizer's own data that they tried to hide for 75 years.
Mm-hmm.
This was available to everybody in the government and Pfizer and the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the American College of OBGYN, and the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine on February 28th, 2021. So let's double click on this. Let's see what the government says. This is it right here. Now I'm going to go down to page 7. And Tommy, can you see this?
Yep.
Here. I can make it bigger. I'm going to make it bigger.
General overview, select characteristics.
Okay, can you read this right here?
Fatal.
The case outcome, fatalities.
Fatal, 1,223.
Okay. Now let's let this sink in, folks. Tommy, this is by their own admission, not by Jim Thorp, not by Peter McCullough, not by Tommy Carrigan, not by anybody else, not by the government. This is from Pfizer's own internal documents that they tried to hide for 75 years, and the federal judge made them drop it. It was dropped last year on an appropriate day, April 1st, 2022, 15 months later after they had it. So, but I've had this for over 2 years. Now, what you see here is it's been out for 10 weeks. You know, you can say 12 weeks, but they didn't start the injections until week 2. So it's really 10 weeks. What's, Tommy, divide those number of deaths by 10. What you get is 122.3 deaths per week for the first 10 weeks of rollout, right? Would you agree? If this represents 1,223 dead in 90 days, well, December 1st to February 28th, right? That's a 12 weeks. Really, the rollout didn't start till December 14th. We'll call it 10 weeks. That's greater than 100 deaths associated with a vaccination, the Pfizer vaccine per week in the first week. Or if you take 10 weeks, 122.3 dead per week after injected with the so-called Pfizer vaccine. Would you agree with that? Okay. I think all of your audience would too. It's right in front of you. Tommy, that happens to be the deadliest rollout of any drug, any medicine, any vaccine, or any medical instrumentation in the history of medicine. Never before in the 90-day post-marketing rollout of anything have they had this many dead. Ever. Now, some people will say, well, that's because they gave a lot of flu vaccines. No, not really. No, they've given a lot more influenza vaccines than they have flu vaccines. Okay. I've researched that. Just since 1990, we've probably given out, 68 billion influenza vaccines. Okay. We never had these kind of deaths. This is the deadliest drug ever rolled out, and they knew it. Pfizer knew it. The CDC, the FDA, Janet Woodcock, Rochelle Walensky, who, by the way, none of whom are elected. None of these individuals are elected. They're extensions of the government. So by default, ACOG, ABOG, and SMFM, American Board of OBGYN, American College of OBGYN Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine, all had this data. That's February 28th, 2021. Now let's walk down the timeline. What happened coincident at the same time? The Department of Health and Human Services, using your tax dollars, rolled out unprecedented in the history of the United States of America. $13 billion, which they advertised as grants given to over 274 sectors of our society to, now I think one can make a very, very cogent legal argument to bribe them into not deviating from the federal narrative. And I will use that word because, you can challenge that. Well, it's not a bribe, it's a grant. Well, as I look at it, you're giving them a large sum of money. You're not asking for it to be returned unless you deviate from the state narrative. And it very clearly says that.
Yeah.
That's to me a bribe.
Yeah, that's a bribe.
So that's 274 sectors of our society. And who was a founding member of that granting agency, which was a newly developed agency called the COVID-19 Coalition Corps, CCC, American College of OBGYN. So let's walk it down. Now, this is about the time when I'm blasting ABOG and threatening them, saying, where's your safety data? This is really, really dangerous. Giving them this data, publishing a paper, calling them out in the paper, talking about RICO violations, talking about collusion, talking about fraud, talking about criminal actions, calling them out, published over 15 months ago. They knew it. And all they could do is respond back to me and say, well, Dr. Thorp, you're spreading misinformation. We're going to destroy you professionally unless you stop. Go for it. Go for it.
Hmm.
So they wouldn't engage with me. The same with ACOG, the same with Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine. I've been honored by these institutions, Tommy, my whole career. I've received research grants, top research papers of the year from the Society of Maternal Fetal Medicine. I served the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology as an examiner in the 90s, in the early 90s. I worked and have been honored by the American College of OBGYN, and they won't even engage with me. Arguably, I will say, the most senior and the most well-published OBGYN maternal fetal medicine doctor in the world on COVID. To my knowledge, that's an accurate statement. You find another board-certified OBGYN, board-certified maternal fetal medicine physician in the country that's published about 30 papers specifically on COVID to date. If you can find another one of those doctors, fine, find them. But did they call me up and did they address my concerns of breaking the golden rule of price globally for the first time in the history of medicine? No, they ignored me. They threatened. So let's go down. Now we go to the June of 2021, just a few months later, and the fake, fraudulent New England Journal of Medicine article of Shima Bakuro was published. Now, can you still see my screen there? Okay, what if I change up the screen and I go for this one here? Can you see that?
Yep. And real quick, for everybody listening, I did update the description to both your Twitter and your beautiful bride's Twitter.
Thank you. Now, this comes from a paper that was published by myself, by my research colleagues, and including my beautiful bride. And this was published last year. It was published by the Gazette of Medical Sciences, and I see the date on there. I want to say this was published in September or so of last year, maybe August. It was published in the Gazette of Medical Sciences. And what I want to show you is the flagrant fraud of Shima Bakuro and the New England Journal of Medicine article. Now, listen, let's put this in context again. Remember, Shima Bakuro has so many conflicts of interest that it's egregious. Every one of the 21 authors on this paper are federal employees. Shima Bakuro is not only a federal employee, but he is chief or one of the leaders of the Vaccine Safety Committee of the FDA and the CDC. So he has a huge, unparalleled, gross conflict of interest, and the New England Journal of Medicine never should have allowed him. Who should have written this article? Somebody with my expertise and my credibility and my lack of conflicts of interest, not bamboozled by a crook who lied. And I want to show you, it's not just Shima Bakuro that lied, and I think deserves criminal prosecution. I'll say that again. I believe he deserves criminal prosecution because by publishing this, knowing it was fraudulent, and fraudulently broadcasting all over the world with the New England Journal of Medicine seal on it, that this was safe, effective, and necessary in pregnancy was a flagrant lie. It was fraudulent, and they killed people, my patients, all over the world. And they knew 3 months earlier that it was the deadliest drug or vaccine or medicine ever rolled out in the history of medicine. Collect yourself, Jimbo. All right,
No,
I will.
man. No, don't collect yourself, man. Let it out.
I have a lot of moral and ethical pain from what I've seen and from the ignorance and the corruption of my physician colleagues and my professional organizations and my government. The situation speaks for itself. Okay, Are you going to believe the federal government or the New England Journal of Medicine or the subsequent corrupt publications in the captured medical journals? Or are you going to believe Pfizer's own internal documents? You choose. They knew. And I want to say, no matter how many journal articles they publish, and they publish several now, probably at least a half a dozen or a dozen that are published since this in their fraudulent medical journals with manipulated data showing that it's safe and effective. And we'll go through some of those. Now, I want to carry on this timeline. So that brings us to June. We have the horrible, criminal, lethal misinformation that Shimabukuro and the federal government put out to the most vulnerable patients that exist, my pregnant women, preborns, and newborns. They knowingly did this. They knew it was the deadliest drug ever. They had that data. It was given to them on February 28th, 5 months earlier. Yet they hurried and did a rush job. Well, let's go to this study here and let's talk about this. Right here, I'm in the page 170. This is Thorp, my older brother, my beautiful bride, myself, my niece, who is a researcher. It looks a little nepotistic with 4 Thorp authors on there. But I can tell you that they're all incredibly researchers. So in a study intended, this is referring to Shimabukuro, the New England Journal of Medicine, in a study intended to evaluate vaccine safety during pregnancy, Shimabukuro et al. Followed outcomes in 3,958 vaccinated pregnant women between mid-December 2020 and the end of February 2021. Does that sound familiar? Mm-hmm. The exact same dates as the Pfizer 5.3.6. During the 2.5 month period, 827 women completed their pregnancy, of which 712 or 86.1% were live births, and 115 parentheses 13.9% were pregnancy losses. Of the pregnancy losses, 104 were spontaneous abortions, also known as miscarriage, spontaneous abortions, of which 92.3% occurred before 13 weeks of pregnancy. Upon review of the data, however, 700 of these patients, or 84.6% of women, weren't vaccinated until the 3rd trimester, long after a spontaneous abortion would have ever occurred. By definition, to your audience, a miscarriage only occurs before 20 weeks. They lied. They manipulated the data. Now watch what they did. Nonetheless, the authors knowingly shifted. They included these 700 third trimester vaccinations in the denominator when they calculated the spontaneous abortion rate. Based on their statistical sleight of hand, authors pegged spontaneous abortion rate at 12.6%, 104 divided by 827, when in fact it was 82%. It was 82%, 104 over 127. Do the math. It's clear violation. There were 3 OBGYN doctors on this page. They wouldn't have missed it. And let's not let this opportunity pass to slam another person that needs to be slammed and personally called out. And that's the crookster, the huckster, the fraudster, New England Journal of Medicine editor-in-chief, Eric Rubin. You all know Eric Rubin. I mean, the New England Journal of Medicine is a flagship of the medical industrial fraudulent complex. I mean, they have past editors that admit to the fact that they're captured by the pharmaceutical industry. Listen to what this bastard says. And I mean that. He's a bastard, and he's killed a lot of my patients, and he's killed a lot of children. Listen to what this bastard said at the FDA hearing. When he voted, and he put his vote in for injecting the kids with this poison, he says, well, the fact of the matter is we have no safety data. Let's just roll it out and see what happens. Can you imagine that? Let's just roll it out and see what happens. just like he did in pregnancy. Are you kidding me? You never do that in pregnancy, you idiot. Didn't you learn your lesson from thalidomide? Didn't you learn your lesson from diethylstilbestrol, you moron? That's not science.
Well, you're giving him a beneficial out that he doesn't deserve. You're calling him stupid. He's not stupid. He knew what he did. Hitler wasn't stupid. Hitler didn't accidentally round up Jews. Calling them stupid, though it feels good, when we're angry, don't give him an out he doesn't deserve. He knew what he did, right? A kid is stupid. When a kid breaks something, that's an accident. When a serial killer kidnaps 10 women over 10 years, you don't say you're an idiot. You say you're a monster.
He's a monster. Good point. Point well taken. I want to go on because I've been criticized a lot, but I still stand by it. I stand resolute by this. It's right in front of you. I published this. My name is on it, and I'll debate anybody in the world on it. Okay. So we have now, this is astonishing miscarriage rate is equivalent to the efficacy of the so-called abortion pill, RU486, also known as mifepristone, which carries an FDA black box warning to alert consumers to major drug risks. And yet, Shimabukuro et al. Concluded there were no obvious safety concerns. So, yeah, I'm passionate and I'm angry, and I have a lot of moral and ethical injury over nobody paying attention to this. And to this day, Tommy, all of these organizations are doubling down and pushing this, and if not mandating it, unethically, immorally, and illegally in the most vulnerable populations, my pregnant women and also children. So this is unconscionable. So I want to march down. So this is June now of 2021. Now let's keep going down this timeline. Remember, we started December 1st, 2020, went to February 28th, 2021, talked about the COVID-19 Coalition Corps and the HHS giving $13 billion at this crucial time when it was being rolled out. We went up to the fraudulent Shimabukuro, monster New England Journal of Medicine editor-in-chief, Eric Rubin, who should be put up for crimes against humanity, should be at least jailed for the rest of their lives, if not, capital punishment. They really should hang. They killed millions of people and injured even tens of millions more of my patients, the most vulnerable, and they trusted the narrative. So then we go to July. What happened in July? Well, in July, the Society of Maternal Fetal Medicine, the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and the American College of OBGYN, 3 separate boards, and many, many others all got that massive bribe money. So they said, yeah, we're recommending this in pregnancy. They knew it was the deadliest drug ever ruled out. It was their duty to know that. It was my duty. I knew it. I was blasting them. All they had to do, I've sent them the data. They knew it in July of 2021. I continued to blast them. Then what happened in September of 2021? And we got 2 months later, every single one of those 100 to 200 boards, certification boards, and medical organizations, lock, stock, and barrel, around September 15th, sent an email to every single one of their constituents in the United States of America, all nurses, all doctors, said if you deviate from the narrative, just like their collective agreement with the CCC, if you deviate, we're going to destroy you, take away your license, and take away your credentials. That is not science, Tommy. That's the antithesis of science. That is fascism. It's fascism.
Keep going.
Okay. We talked a little bit about miscarriage And what are the actual miscarriage rates? I want to point out to your audience, this is Dr. Khan Sayed, and he goes by a. Can you see that in front of you?
Yep.
It's a really I think it's really excellent. It's very very detailed and in depth. He does a great job. He calls himself the ARC Medic. What is it? The ARC Medics blog.
Yeah,
That's right.
Medic.
ARC as in Noah's Ark Medics blog. Did a great job on this. But what he does is he goes down and he points out in very much detail. By the way, the vSafe system was a smartphone system, and the vSafe system was endowed by the CDC and FDA, and it was a system that started, and that's where Shima Bakuro got his data from to publish the fraudulent, monster, horrible disinformation, lethal disinformation, published in the New England Journal of Medicine. He used the vSafe program, which was a really nice way to fraudulent and to manipulate data. Many of these, there's over 10 million people in the vSafe system, and to this day, the data was so damning, Tommy, that over 10 million vSafe patients that they have, the data was so damning. Not all pregnant patients, a lot of pregnant patients. It was so damning that they won't reveal it. They've revealed parts of it. And what do we know about the vSafe? There's a vSafe 1 publication. That's the Shima Bakuro New England Journal of Medicine. There's another vSafe 2 article by a lady by the name of Lauren Zauch, Zauch, and that was published later in 2021, I believe. But they're both corrupted. They're both manipulated. They're both woke journals because they mandated. Well, yeah, New England Journal of Medicine mandates that you use woke terminology. You're not allowed to use breastfeeding mothers, it's chest feeding, or you're not allowed to use pregnant women. It's pregnant people. So right away, That's your first clue. Whenever you pick up a journal and you start reading woke language, you're trying to read a scientific paper from people that believe that men can menstruate, ovulate, have babies, and chest feed.
It's like picking up a newspaper written in Cyrillic in the 80s.
That's right.
Right away, there's going to be a tint against the U.S. or the West, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. So the vSafe 2 data, and by the way, vSafe 1, I'll say this very strongly. I can't say with 100% certainty, but the vSafe 1 New England Journal of Medicine was article, Shima Bakuro didn't write that. He didn't write it. It's my opinion, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. This was ghost written by the pharmaceutical company. Ghost writing by the pharmaceutical complex has been going on for eons. And then what they do is they take some dummy like Shima Bakuro who wants to be famous and wants to, get more job security to get him to publish it. They did the same thing with the dastardly monster article with Dr. Mandeep Mehra that put out the flagrantly false manuscript in the Lancet that impugned and destroyed hydroxychloroquine. In essence, it was all fabricated and lied. So he didn't write that article. The pharmaceutical industry did, and they gave it to him. And it was fraudulent. They had to withdraw it. People like Mandeep Mehra, people like Shima Bakuro, people like Eric Rubin need to be litigated. They need to put in the criminal justice system, and at the very least, they need to be imprisoned for life, if not executed by hanging, because they've killed millions. So if you look at the vSafe 1, the vSafe 2 data, the vSafe 1 data, they're all manipulated, and they manipulate. They come up with this, like Shima Bakuro said, oh, well, the miscarriage rate should be, that's in the range 13%. No, it shouldn't. I'll show you. No, You manipulate it from 82% down to 12 or 13. You didn't manipulate enough because the normal miscarriage rate would only be about 4% in clinical practice of women that present in early pregnancy. And I'll show you a paper on that later. But when we go back to all of the V-Safe data, still to this date, today, April 22nd, 2023, the federal government still has not released the V-Safe, all of the V-Safe data. What does it show? Of the 10 million people that got the vaccine, now these are not just pregnant women, these are all comers, 7%. 7% of 10 million people required an immediate hospital visit, hospitalization, or doctor visit. Can you imagine that?
Jeez, 7.
Okay, 7%. And another 25%, another additional, this doesn't include the 7%, an additional 25% of that 10 plus million had to either miss work or miss school from severe reactions. So you're looking at about 1/3 of those 10 million people, about 3 million people suffered consequences from that. We do know that, but they won't release the V-Safe pregnant data because the only way they've released it is by chunks of that were manipulated and arbitrated and fraudulently manipulated by the medical industrial complex journals, the New England Journal of Medicine, and then the journal that Zouch wrote that. Zouch didn't write. They picked these perfect idyllic people, like to ghostwrite these articles. Like, okay, we should have put a woman on there, right? Well, we can't find a. We can't. Let's see, who can we put on this? Well, here's a young woman. She's attractive. Well, she's not a doctor, but she's a nurse. Well, she's never done any research before. She has no credibility, but she's a woman and it'll be a good face. Yeah, we'll offer it to her. She didn't write it. We'll put her name on it. It'll be a great career advancer for her. This is the way that they work. This is the way they've worked for years. So that's completely. So if we go down, and this ARC medic now, El Sayed, Dr. Khan Sayed, done a terrific job. I'm not going to go through a lot of his data, but one of the things that he shows, he talks about a lot of the stuff that I did. He talks a lot about how you calculate a miscarriage rate. And one of the flaws in calculating, a lot of people have come in and tried to look at the data and the miscarriage data, and they always screw it up. Many experts have done this around the world now. They say, well, these OB doctors, they don't know what they're talking about. They really should be calculating miscarriage rate based on a survival rate. And that's like cancer. Okay, when somebody dies, okay, that, how many left are surviving. When somebody dies in a survival analysis, they drop that patient out of the analytics, out of the numerator and denominator. So that's not how we do it in OB. We don't manipulate the statistics. We take all comers and we keep those patients, like all comers to doctors, like take Dr. Kimberly Biss, all comers to Dr. Kimberly Biss office that registered in, got in and logged in, okay? And then you say you take 100 or 1,000 of those patients, and then at the end of the 9 months is the end of the interval, and you got X amount, 4% had a miscarriage, whatever. You don't drop the patients that had the miscarriage from the numerator and denominator and develop the survival curve. That's probably a little bit too in depth for the audience, but it's an irrelevant manipulation of statistics that is not the way that obstetricians or miscarriage work. And that's why it's really dangerous for these epidemiologists and people that don't deliver babies and don't have a OBGYN residency training. They don't really belong in making these calculations. It needs to be a seasoned veteran like myself who knows how the statistics can be manipulated. Want to go here to this is probably the best article that I can find recently. This is This is by Mackenzie and Naird. And this was published in November of 2022, but all of the cases were pre-pandemic. This is a pre-pandemic study. And just what I want to really show you is that when, if even when they claim a miscarriage rate of 13%, that's way, way too high. Way, way too high. We're looking at really, of these patients, and they found a 5.4% miscarriage. And when you get to 13 weeks, it's only 0.8%. Now, Kimberly Biss's data from St. Petersburg and my other expert, general OBGYN whistleblowers, they tell me that their miscarriage rate, if you start in their clinical practice when a pregnancy is documented, it's only around 4 or 5%. It's not 13%. So that's an important article. I want to go back to another one of our articles, which we published last year, and I make this point. This is a table. Can you see this table okay?
Yes.
So this was published again in the Gazette of Medical Sciences. This one, Ken Thorp, my older brother, myself, and my niece published this Unraveling of Experimental Medicine. There were 3 separate publications. This was part 3, and this was also published last year. And one of the things that we did was, which is really cool, I pulled out 1,366 peer-reviewed medical journal articles. I read every single one of them. I studied them. I documented all the references. And the Gazette of Medical Sciences was so impressed with this, is that they published every single one of the references online as a separate addendum, a separate attachment to this, which I'll show you in a little bit. But I also created this really cool table, which I created, and I categorized all of the publications by subject of the complication incurred after the vaccine. So I want to show your audience this. Of the 1,366 peer-reviewed medical journal articles documenting death or severe injury after the COVID-19 vaccine, this was just for 15 months. 15 months. That's all. There's probably well over 2,500 now. But what I wanted to show you in that 15 months, the first rollout here, look at what, no surprise to Dr. McCullough, the most common, there were 336 articles which were regarded cardiac disease, myocarditis, or pericarditis, 336. And here's all the references. Reference number 262-597, and I'll show you that. The next most common was vaccine-induced thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura, 209 articles, similar to my colleague in South Florida, which was killed from this disease, a young man in South Florida, an OBGYN doc, last year, or late 2021 or early 2022.
How do you say it? Vaccine-induced thrombotic thrombocytopenia. And what did you say after it? Purpura?
Yes, vaccine-induced thrombotic thrombocytopenia. Some people will say thrombotic thrombocytopenia, thrombocytopenic purpura, but it's the same thing.
Gotcha.
Vaccine-induced thrombotic thrombocytopenia. Then the third most common was arterial and venous thromboembolisms. Gotcha. So again, let's just think about this objectively, like we did with the Pfizer data. This is objective data. Jim Thorp didn't make it up. This has been published for over a year. Nobody's refuted this. Nobody's gone back and said, "Oh, Thorp's full of what." They didn't do that. Nobody's argued with me. So until somebody shoots it down, and maybe somebody will say, "Well, we found a few more, a few less, whatever." The fact of the matter is there's a massive amount of publications. Now, understand that each one of these publications is peer-reviewed, and each one of these most of them have 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 or 6 authors on it, right? Now you think about this, Tommy. If an author signs his name to a vaccine injury during that time period, or even now, they're setting themselves up to be destroyed personally and professionally, right? So there's probably 4 or 5,000 doctors around the world in the first 15 months of this, the vaccine rollout, that signed their name in blood on a publication. Think about that.
Yeah.
Does that sound like, that sounds like a pretty unanimous, that sounds like a really, really impressive groups of doctors all around the world and medical journals all over the world. And then when we, can you see this slide?
Yes.
Okay. Now, look at this slide. If this doesn't infuriate you or impress you or bring out some emotion in you, nothing will. This is a bar graph, and on the y-axis here is you've got the number of peer-reviewed medical journal articles, and the first bar is red. That's for the COVID-19 vaccine, 1,366 in just the first 15 months. Look at the next bar. I could only find 39 published peer-reviewed adverse events of the influenza vaccines over 784 months.
I was thinking that you had these all in the same time. No, so it's not even.
No.
Good Lord.
No.
So it's 15 months versus 784, 616, 44, 46, 436, 448, and 556 months. So, I mean, what is that? So 1/10 would be 150. So in about, 2% of the time, it has had. Good Lord.
And listen to this. Here's the fact of the matter is, Tommy, if you add up all the peer-reviewed publications for all the vaccines in the last century, the COVID-19 vaccines in just 15 months still make all of those combined pale in comparison.
Good Lord.
The last century for just 15 months.
Good Lord. So all of them combined over 100 years versus one in 15 months.
So it's a very, very concerning. Now, of course, this is our paper, and I know that we're kind of winding down. I've laid a lot of information on you.
No, it's great.
But this is our publication, and you know what I'd really like to do is let me pull it up, because since you last had me on, this was published as in a major publication, and let me pull it up for you. Whoops, that's not it. Wrong one. That's the preprint.
You should take that bar graph and, just for shits and giggles, you should extrapolate it to make all the time periods the same.
Yeah.
Just for kind of.
Well, I don't. The rest of them, if the time period were the same, I don't think there were any in the last.
Well, what
15.
I mean is scale COVID up to 784 months.
Yeah.
Just to have the same kind of oomph behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you couldn't bring the others down to 15 because there wouldn't be anything.
That's right. I'm just pulling up.
No, you're good.
This was published in the American Physicians and Surgeons Journal, and I want to publish this up because this is really the most important publication of my entire career. And keep in mind, so here we are right here. Just acknowledging my co-authors, Claire Rogers, just incredible. She's a physician assistant in Rome, Georgia. Michael Deskovich, PhD in mathematical modeling, and Stuart Tankersley, my family practice military medical whistleblower in Montgomery. Albert Benavides, the world expert on VAERS, Megan Rudshaw, lead counsel for Trial Site News, and of course, Peter McCullough. Now, this is not the author's data. This is the government data. This is the HHS, CDC, FDA data. And we analyzed it exactly as the FDA and the CDC recommended, using their own biased method of analytics. And what they recommend is that you're not allowed to compare a novel vaccine to a placebo. No. You got to compare a novel vaccine to a safe vaccine. Well, all vaccines cause death, harm, and injury, all of them. So that's biasing. Of course, that's what they want. Since they're funded by vaccine profits, they want more money. It's all about the money. So they want to bias the investigators like me, and hornswoggling me into analyzing it with their methods. Okay, fine. I'll hang them with their own rope. So they recommend comparison of the novel vaccine to a standard vaccine. So I chose influenza vaccine. Influenza vaccine, why? Because I pushed that a lot in pregnancy. We all did. I don't anymore, but I used to. And that was approved for pregnancy use in 1997 or 1997. And by the way, it was approved for use in 1997, Tommy, only after it was in general use, excluding pregnancy, for 60 years. 60 years. I just turned 70 years old. That's a long time, 60 years. So, it's unbelievable that, people can think it's fine to just roll a novel vaccine out in pregnant women now, when the last time we did it with the influenza vaccine, it was in general practice use in the general population for 60 years. Be that as it may, we used their analytics. We did it exactly as a reference, a ratio rate between the adverse event between the novel vaccine, which in this case was COVID-19 vaccines, versus influenza vaccines. The study used 200 from January 1st, 1998 to June 30th, 2022. That's 282 months of influenza vaccine in pregnancy control data compared with just 15 months or 18 months at that time for the novel COVID-19 vaccines. They said a twofold increase risk is their danger signal. Well, we didn't see a twofold. We saw a massive increase in risk. Now we're talking an increase in risk, anywhere from 5 to 10 to 50 to 100, even 1,000-fold. Now I do want to make it real clear, because this is confusing to even investigators and doctors, let alone audience. We're comparing adverse event in a vaccine compared to adverse event in another vaccine. It's not the same as a relative risk or an odds ratio. The only way you can get a relative risk or an odds ratio is by using different methodologies. What this does is define the ratio of the rate of symptoms from one drug with another drug. That's what the CDC asked us to do. That's what we did. But the results, like in the case of the menstrual abnormalities, in one of the analytics, it was a 1,200-fold increase. That doesn't translate into a 1,200-fold relative risk or odds ratio. So those semantics and statistics are very different, and that's what a lot of people have difficulty understanding. So I'll go down. What we did was really incredible, and this is irrefutable and it's undeniable. What Albert Benavides, the world expert, wanted to do was, he said, Jim, you're missing the boat on this. He goes, they've hidden and they've screwed themselves, because I can find how they're hiding and deleting people that have died and people that are injured. I can prove it, which he did prove it to me. He goes, let's use the corrected statistic. I said, no, Albert, maybe on the next study we'll do that. I'm going to hang them with their own rope. Yeah. We're not going to correct their falsification and they're throttling the data. We're not going to correct it. I know you have proof of it. You've convinced me, but I'm going to hang them with their own rope. Yeah. And that's what we did.
Use their own
we have we calculated the adverse event risk per time period because there's different time periods, right? So that's one separate, completely separate, independent analytics that we did. And then we did the adverse event for both vaccines. We did the adverse event per shot, the actual number of shots. And then that's totally separate analytic. And then the third methodology that we all did, and this was Mike Deskovich's brilliant idea. He's a mathematical modeler, just brilliant, brilliant guy. And so the third method is adverse event per person vaccinated. So just to give you an idea, like there's been about 13 billion COVID-19 vaccines administered to only about 5.5 billion people. So they're totally separate analytics, but they all showed the same thing. We looked at 18 different adverse events, 17 of which were pregnant, one of which was pre-pregnant menstrual period abnormality. So every single one of those adverse events was striking. Now, if, like, for example, what we found was a 1,200-fold increase in abnormal menstruation in the COVID-19 vaccine compared with the influenza vaccine. We found a 57-fold increase in miscarriage from the COVID-19 vaccine compared to the influenza vaccine, and a 38-fold increase in fetal death, 38-fold increase. And then we also found increase in fetal chromosomal abnormalities. I'm watching the clock here, Tommy.
No, you're good. We don't need to end exactly at it. We can go over.
Fetal chromosomal abnormalities, miscarriage, fetal malformations, fetal cardiac malformations, fetal malformations of every organ system, fetal cardiac arrest, fetal arrhythmia, severe early onset preeclampsia, severe fetal growth restriction, severe calcifications of the placenta, blood clot of the placenta, blood clot in the umbilical cord, obviously fetal death, severe fetal growth restriction, meaning the babies can't grow because their placentas are abnormal, severe abnormal fetal testing because of all the abnormal disease pathophysiologies that are going on from the vaccine. And then preterm premature rupture of membranes, premature delivery and newborn death from prematurity. Those are all corroborated. Now, I want to just show you that what I can do is also show you in this data.
Hey, Dr. Thorp, let me go use the restroom. We can keep going for like another 15, 20 minutes if that would be better.
No, you go use the restroom. Yeah, I got plenty of time for it.
Yeah. No, we're good. That was a. But because it's live, I can't have dead air. So Dr. Thorp, you gotta fill the air for me.
All right. So what I'm gonna do is I want you to look at this graph. I think that you can see this graph. That's not the first graph that there's my first graph. What you can see in this graph, and I'm going to make this larger so that hopefully you can see that. There we go. That's a little better. So what you see is that the fetal death rate in the United States of America, these are national statistics, we're looking at very, very steady. It's very little variance in the fetal death rate. 40 years ago, that it was probably up to somewhere around 9 to 10 per 1,000 births. And over the course of the career, it's come down to about 5.8 per 1,000 births. That's the incident fetal death rate. Now, this is 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 22. Now, what I want to show you is that if you look at that fetal death rate and you aggregate, and I'm addressing the fact, well, Dr. Thorp, you moron, it wasn't the vaccine that was killing these babies, it was COVID-19. No, it's not. I'm going to prove that to you right here on this graph. Look at it. If you look at, you aggregate the 3 years before the severe pandemic of COVID-19, which was in 2020, the fetal death rate actually dropped. If the worst year, the death year of COVID-19 without the vaccine was in 2020, what I've just showed you is that the fetal death rate dropped in 2020. So COVID-19 is not increasing fetal deaths or stillbirths. Doesn't do it. But look at what this is: whistleblower data from Michelle Gershman, RN, postpartum nurse whistleblower from Fresno, California. And in the hospital out there, from her own administration's email, is real data. The fetal death rate shot up from the usual rate of 1 to 2 fetal stillbirths every 2 to 3 months to 22 per month. This is not Michelle Gershman's data. This is not Jim Thorp's data. This is not Peter McCullough's data. This is the hospital administrator data that sent this data out on an email to over 100 nurses. And they admitted themselves that there were probably many more that they didn't capture. These were only the fetal deaths that went straight to labor and delivery. The ones that went to the operating room immediately, or to the emergency room, or delivered at home, or delivered at another facility, or delivered in their car, weren't even counted. So we're looking at a rise from, if you calculate this into the death rate, from 5.74, 5.8 to 29.3. Okay, that sounds insignificant. Well, it's not insignificant. It's a massive increase, because one standard deviation, which is our statistical measurement of how much the rate varies, it varies very little. It's only 0.5 fetal deaths per thousand. So you're looking at a 40 sigma surge. That's a 1 in a million year event, 40 sigma surge, literally. So something happened to cause these. This is not chance alone. If you don't put COVID-19 vaccination in your Overton window, you're never going to come at. You will never find that for which you do not look. So they coming up all these goofy, maybe it's the pesticides, maybe it's a glyphosate, maybe it's the atrazine, maybe it's the, whatever, maybe it's a radiation from Fukushima, whatever, that's ridiculous. Nothing changed in 2021 except the vaccine. Now I have 3 other whistleblower sites that are worse than this, and they're all in highly vaccinated area. I want to make one more point here, Tommy. Remember, I said that there was a 38-fold increase in fetal deaths. Well, clearly, this is not a 38-fold. This is the kind of a study where I can say, what's the baseline? What did it increase to? You can't do it from the risk ratio that the FDA and the CDC mandated. You can't do it. You're looking at a variance in symptoms or adverse events between 2 vaccines. But now we can do that. There's a 5-fold increase in fetal deaths, at least a 5-fold, if not more. So yes, this is consistent with my clinical practice. This is what I see in my clinical practice. Now, when we go to, let's go down to my next site in, this is my site in, I'm going to make this larger so you can see it. Can you see that, Tommy?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So this is my site in Canada, and this is in British Columbia, Vancouver, Lionsgate Hospital. Now, listen, you'll notice that the y-axis is totally different. They went up in the California data from Michelle Gershman's data. It went from 5.8 to 29.3 fetal deaths per thousand. Okay, look at they had 13 dead babies, Tommy. 13 dead babies in one 24-hour period. 21 dead babies in 1 week. if you, I couldn't even put this on the graph. I had to pretend it was just only 13 dead babies in 1 week. That took the fetal death rate from whatever 5.8 or whatever you want to choose up to 160. That's 160 fetal deaths per 1,000 deliveries. That's a 16% fetal death rate, Tommy. And I have 2 other whistleblower sites. This is 300 sigma surge. This is really sick, really abnormal. Now, I'm not saying this, I'm not saying this massive number of stillbirths in my clinical practice, because of course my clinical practice is in the Midwest. I've seen over 26,000 high-risk OB patients in the last 3 to 4 years, and the rate that I'm seeing, it's definitely increased. My guess is that our rate is probably up 2 to 3-fold in the Midwest, and probably the same here in Florida. So I wanted to just end with that. I've shown you a lot of data, and I could go on for eons, but I think that it's best to probably let you and your audience collect your breath. And I'm going to try to take this screen share off if I can figure out how to do it.
I think I can just turn it off.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might not be able to. I'm not. I should understand Zoom more, but you'd think after 1,200 episodes.
Yeah.
No, it didn't. I think you have to end the screen share.
I think I do too. I got this little.
Everybody is getting a first class look at how unqualified I am to run this podcast,
and me as well. Yeah, I can't. Let's see. Maybe this one. There we go. Maybe this is the best I can do. I can't seem to undo it from my side.
Let's see. Everybody watching this is banging their head against the wall right now.
Yeah. These idiots. What are they doing?
View options.
Mute my audio. Stop.
Wait, I think I found it. There we go.
Yeah, there. Where'd you find it?
I up top there was like a little green bar.
Okay.
And next to it,
awesome.
it scrolled down, and I'll forget it the next time I share. It took me a year to figure out how to screen share until finally one day I sat down and figured it out. So I do the bare minimum required to understand how to run this technology. I figure it's 90% entertaining and gripping content. It's 1%, people actually watch it and care about the production quality. So I don't care.
Well, I really, really enjoyed visiting with you.
I love having you on here, man.
Really enjoy. I think very highly of your expertise and
Thank
your
you.
platform. I mean, it's in my circles, your platforms is one of the ideal top platforms that we want to be in. I think that mainly is because of who you are.
Thank you, sir.
You stand for.
It's definitely something I work towards, and it's also a lot of it's a lack of work. It's not lack of work, that's the wrong framing, but I don't try to butt in my own agenda on what you're going to say or what Dr. McCullough is going to say. I don't have an agenda. I'm just like let them talk. And I think people like that I'm not interrupting you every 9 seconds. And what do you think about Dr. Fauci? And yeah, man, I very much so acknowledge that I'm the podcaster wearing slippers and you're the doctor. I think it probably boils down to I know my position and I play my position. Introduction, plug the Twitter, let you talk, and then I'll come in as the court jester and make people smile when they need to. And on that, I did update and put in your Twitter. Real quick. So that 40 sigma rise, that was 1 in a million. What's 300? Was that billion? Is that beyond the lifespan of the Earth?
It's hard to say. Different people. Edward Dowd has used he talks about 3 sigma, and I think that Edward Dowd was the one that talked about, 3 sigma being a 1 in 100-year event.
Yeah.
I think 10 sigma being a 1 in 1,000-year event.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of controversy with regard to that. But the fact of the matter is, just a number, like if you take these p values are down to the 10 to the minus 17th power, 10 to the minus, and we as human beings don't have an ability to comprehend that. But let me give you a visual. Let's talk about 10 to the 17th.
Yeah.
Power.
What is an atom? How small is an atom? What's that?
Yeah.
Let's see what that is. Atom size.
You're talking about angstrom. You're probably
Yeah.
talking
So
about
we're
a fraction of an angstrom.
10 to the -8. Well, that's of a centimeter. What do we have in like meters?
An angstrom is 10 to the minus 10th meter.
Okay, so it's 10 to -10. All right, so there you go. And then I know that we are closer to the higher end than we are in terms of the entire scale of the universe. I think if you take the scale of the universe, the total size of the observable universe, all the way down to Planck space, I think Planck space is farther from us than the size of the universe. So we're technically not even we're not at the center. I know that. What is a Planck? I think Planck's 10 to the -30 something. Planck scale.
Minus 21st, is it the Planck's constant?
How small is the Planck scale? 10 to the -35th meters. So that's way out there. Okay,
that's and that's the smallest measurable physical particle.
Yeah,
they theorize according.
It's the amount of time, or it's the space that the speed of light, the fastest possible speed, travels over Planck time, the smallest possible measurement of time. And that's Planck scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now here's another.
I think they said, sorry, if a hydrogen atom was the size of if a hydrogen atom was the size of the solar system, Planck space would be the spaces in a screen door. If you really want to melt your brain.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you take 10 to the 17th silver dollars, you all know what a silver dollar is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you take the geographic footprint of Texas, which is a massive footprint.
Mm-hmm.
You have to fill the whole state up with over 2 feet of silver dollars. And that's 10 to the 17th silver dollars.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, we're dealing with numbers beyond what we can rationally understand. I think humans probably have a good idea of up to like 1,000 of something, right? And that might be pushing it, right? You can, football stadium, 100,000 people. So you can maybe kind of visualize that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, these numbers are, I think what the point is intuitively what that goes to show is this isn't normal. It's not a normal, if someone's describing the size of a wave, we've all seen tiny waves on a lake, and we've all seen big waves, a stormy day at the beach when you're a kid.
That's right.
When you start getting into like tsunamis and stuff, and you realize if you were just looking at data, you'd go, that's something else. That's not right. And then you would find out, oh, this is something that swallowed a city. Yeah, that's not a wave you're seeing in a pool. Right? We might have a hard time going, what's a 5-foot wave compared to a 10-foot wave? But if someone's going, it was a 200-foot wave, something's wrong. That's a tsunami, right? That's the Coast Guard's called. That's the satellites are going off. What that really goes to show is if the sigma's that great, something has happened. And then if you're observing, well, what has happened? Well, there was no nuclear war. There wasn't an asteroid strike. There wasn't a tsunami. Okay, something wild happened. What happened in these years that is out of the norm?
Yeah.
It's a roll out of it's just what it is. It's rationally what it is. It doesn't matter.
That's exactly right.
It's just that's the thing that happened. It could be if it wasn't vaccines, you'd look at something else and you'd say, I don't know, that's the year the Big Mac came on. You go, something's wrong with the Big Mac. We got to look into it, right? Or if that's the year that Teslas went on sale, we'd say something's up with the batteries, right? There's no political weight to it. It doesn't matter what your belief is. It just goes. It's like when you're a kid. Here are 2 pictures. What things are unlike the others, right? And you go, huh, that's a duck, and then that's a crow, and then that's a bluebird, and that's an elephant. You circle the elephant. You go, this one's not small and doesn't fly. But apparently we just don't have the. Maybe it's there's also kind of another level. It's not that people are stupid. It's just that the implications are so horrifying and so paradigm shifting that one, you have to accept that this is happening, and then you have to go, well, how did this happen? Well, the news told me to take it, and my favorite talk show host told me to take it, and Tom Brady told me to take it, and Facebook censored the people that said don't take it, and does that mean everyone was in on it? And then you start going, oh my God, and then you start going, well, how did this happen? And are we living through like some other? Are we living through a modern version of a Holocaust because no one will be convinced to get on train cars, so you'd have to roll it out in a different way to start short circuiting and flatline. And I get it. I'm sympathetic to that. I get the human implications of that. You go, you dissociate. I remember when I found out, the moment I found out that my brother died from suicide, I had like maybe 30 seconds of crying, and then I pretty much went numb for like 9 months. I don't think I cried again for like 9 months. I didn't cry at his funeral. Just white screen, static. And on a human level, I totally understand that. But we do eventually have to start looking at it. No matter how painful it is, you do have to start examining it. It took me 3 years to start going to a therapist, but eventually I did because I realized I couldn't kick the can down the road any further. And I think a lot of us need to start moving towards that and look at it. And that's what you're doing, and that's what all the doctors do that come on here. And that's really, I think I maybe just encompassed what I've been trying to do over the past couple of years, is something so absurd and so blatant has happened. We have to look at it. What's the one thing, and I know I'm rambling, but what's the one thing, I was only 11, I don't remember it happening. I remember the day. 9/11, what's kind of the universal thing you always hear? When I saw the second plane, everything changed. Right? The first plane was bad. Horrible human accident. When you saw the second plane hit the second tower, 30 minutes later, all the, red lights went off, DEFCON 1, something's happening. No one said it was a coincidence. No one censored it and said, well, planes crash all the time. Everyone went, the president was thrown into Air Force One, and, the missile silos opened. But for this, only 3,000 people died that day. But because there's no visceral image of people jumping out of buildings or monuments crumbling, or of the president giving a speech from a bunker, because there's no big oomph, there's no rallying, we're going to hunt down the terrorists and because it's just this like slow trickle of, you're watching Tommy's podcast on Rumble, not YouTube. You're watching a doctor and you don't understand any of this. And you're like, what the hell is a sigma rise? Because it's so esoteric and odd. There's no gut punch behind it, which I imagine, if this is intentional, is by design.
Well, I think that you're absolutely right. I think we're looking at the difference between 9/11 and this. This is much more deadly. It's, accompanied as talked about in our talk, was that the COVID-19 Coalition Corps, through the Department of HHS, used literally, this has been fifth generation warfare.
Mm-hmm.
They accused me of spreading misinformation when I was actually saving lives, and they were the ones that were actually spreading lethal COVID misinformation that have killed maybe upwards of, if you combine they deleted early therapy that would have prevented nearly all of the COVID-19, but then they added one step further. They used it to roll out a deadly vaccine that's killed more than the COVID-19 disease itself killed. Never mind injuring even tenfold as many. So we're looking at fifth generation warfare, and people are still taking it, and they become ingrained into being psychologically dependent upon the government and upon the healthcare system and upon vaccines when it's killing them, and they have solid data that it's killing them, but they can't bring it to their conscious level and make a decision to say, this is bad. The majority of people, it's painful for them. They bought into a narrative. This is fifth generation war.
I think we'll maybe wrap up on a quote. I don't remember what it's from. I know it's a fiction movie, but I remember seeing it in like 2014 or 2013. I don't remember what it, but it's basically like, I don't even know what movie it is, but I can still hear the quote. It's essentially like the good guy gets to the bad guy's evil lair or whatever, and the bad guy is like, he's in like the Illuminati or whatever, controls the world. And the bad guy, and I'll quote it as the bad guy is saying to the good guy, and so you'll play the role of the good guy. And then when I say them, I'm referring to the public. So I'm the bad guy. If you attack me to save them from me, they'll attack you to save me from you. It's a beautiful game. And the guy kind of looks at him. He just has this realization of like, you got to respect your enemy. It's cunning. If I try to go out of my way for someone that just wanted to start a podcast and talk about UFOs, like if I go out of my way to try to do the right thing, I'll be canceled from YouTube. I'll be removed from iTunes and Reddit and Twitter. I'll have my hand tied behind my back. And if a doctor goes out of their way because they know in their gut that something's off, you'll be attacked professionally. And if you parrot the party line, you will be trending, and in some cases you will even benefit financially.
You'll be remunerated.
And it's an evil game, but you got to respect your enemy. The deck is stacked except for one thing, and it's the truth. And the truth is on our side. It's, you can paint
Dr.
it
McCulloch on his Substack, I think last week, came out with horribly just nauseating data suggesting that there are some physicians that took up to $250,000 if they achieve their vaccine status greater than 70% to push the vaccine. Now, I can't vouch for the veracity of that, but Dr. McCulloch is one of my, he's very, very reputable. Yeah. And we all know that pediatricians have traditionally been given at least a $30,000 to $40,000 bonus from the federal government annually to push the vaccine. If their practice was up, it's graded depending on what percentage of the practice is vaccinated. They get a kickback. So that is gross violation of medical ethics.
Yeah. Maybe they screwed up in that they never offered me a check. Maybe I would have shut up. But they never even offered it. So, joke's on them. I guess I did give up revenue and that I wasn't but I wasn't monetized on YouTube. Maybe I'm the person they should have paid off and they didn't. And so now I'm just like, all right, well, fuck you too.
Yeah.
I'll light the whole thing on fire. Screw you. I just wanted to start a podcast and have fun. Y'all backed me into this corner, and I'm going to finish it. I didn't start it, but I'm going to finish it. So screw them. But Dr. Thorpe, do you need to wrap this one up? I got a lot of stuff I still got to get to today.
Yeah. All right, brother.
Thank you for coming on. If you could I please harass you to tweet the link to this episode? I texted you the link.
Absolutely.
And till next time. Thank you so much,
brother.
Dr. Thorpe. Go into the description, guys. Follow him. Follow his beautiful bride. Dr. Thorpe, you're doing God's work. I love you, brother. Thank you so much.
Love you too, brother. Thank you.
Stay safe, everybody. Love each other.
Recording
God
stopped.
bless. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.